All right, folks, welcome to What's Your Story? This guy. I know. I know. This will, though, not be the YouTuber talk that you think it will be. No. This, though, will be tapping in to the brain of the YouTuber that doesn't think he's a YouTuber because he's just, he's on our shows, but he's not actually a YouTuber. But the wisdom that comes from this guy and knowledge base is what I want to kind of like pull on those threads a little bit. But Steven, thanks, my friend. Thanks for doing this, hanging out with me, my brother.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure, and you know better than I do because you've actually had your hands and your feet into the entertainment industry, literally, where
Yeah.
I've just been kind of on the periphery of it. You know that this is beyond intoxicating, and forget about the definition of addicting as well. So, have that. Let's do it. Let's do this. I love doing this.
Yeah. So the thing is it was well over. I get well over the halfway mark of the first year of doing just pops, and I was like, man, it wasn't that it was wearing me down. It's like the only thing that was positive for me was like Indian cinema or foreign cinema or some rando thing that I was doing that got like 36 views. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, I felt so alone. Maybe I felt so like, what is going on? And I think what's happened is, in hindsight, I realized I was just being kind of like ahead of the curve a little bit on the need for like a healthy diet, right? We grew up in the age, you are what you eat from your heads down to your feet, right? We got all these
Hmm.
cliches, right? And, everywhere you go, you're getting lectured by a vegan or a keto person or something, right? And yet we walk around with these phones. And I know the old people might, they try to talk to us, like Steven, like and I'm like, they're as addicted, if not more so than we are, by the way. I'm around
Hmm.
two seniors regularly in my life, and they're glued to their phone. And they race to answer every single phone, every single spam call goes through to them. It's completely insane to me. And I'm like,
Huh.
man. And over the last couple weeks, you in particular had made a couple comments back on a couple videos I did, or Twitter, and it was like, Steven really gets the need for like good content. I need a break from some of the crap in the world. You know what? If it takes a 1992 Batman cartoon to make me smile, then that's what I need. Maybe I need to just take a break from this because I realize the real life world just is just crap sometimes. So what has it been like for you to kind of see the decay of entertainment and then try to figure out like how do I navigate through a healthy place for me?
Oh man. You know, okay. First of all, let me put some of this in perspective before I answer. Okay. When I was a little kid, one of the virtual babysitters that my parents had was a movie house across the street.
Hmm.
Okay. And they would literally drop all five of us off at the movie theater. So my childhood, and I'm talking 5 years and up, has been the cinema. Never got into ball teams, never got into road sports, never got into motorhead things, right? This was it. This was my bread and butter, my peanut butter and jelly, period. End of sentence. All of my metaverse has come from cinema and its spin-offs therefrom. I didn't read the Upanishads until Bill Murray was talking about it in The Razor's Edge. Okay, period.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah.
So that my philosophy begins and ends there. So to see just to focus on just the one property of Star Wars, to see the decay of the fandom and the infighting since 99. Let's not get into contemporary stuff. It's been going
Right. Right.
downhill for me since the prequels, where
Hmm.
there's no evidence in this movie of what you're talking about. This war doesn't make any sense. Why is this guy the Messiah? I mean, like it was breaking my brain. Like you with that the minefield clip.
Landmines.
This
Landmines to the face. Yep.
it's
Hmm.
totally the same thing for me.
Hmm.
Where is the logic? How am I supposed? And then, like you said, the contemporary phase of this is there are brand new screenwriters and filmmakers and actors and costuming. and set designers that have no idea what good cinema is. They
No
don't even
experience.
understand the reason for good cinema. They think all you
Right.
need to do is just be interesting. It's like, no, no, no. I was watching you and Vex talk about Poltergeist, and the pedestrian nature of the events in that film is what makes the film real. The idea that it looks like some cameras just went into somebody's house.
Yeah. Right. But we're gonna. And I think this is so fascinating, Stephen, because they they think again. I keep saying this, and I said this today at lunch. I told someone. I said things just happening is not a story.
Right,
Characters changing because of what is just happening is the story. But if the characters end up the same at the end and the beginning, what was the point? And if we can't relate to all of this, it doesn't even connect. So who is it for? So we have these two major problems that are really, I mean, they're part of a bigger foundation, but they're really two monstrous parts of the foundation. Is we create content for the sake of content. It's just something that happens, which is most of what you're talking about with modern Star Wars, where things just happen. And it felt like with Mando season one, things just happening made sense because you had a Mandalorian who was going on a journey with his little purse puppy, Grogu. But it mattered because you felt like, well, wait, he can't just be this ruthless bounty hunter. He has to have these paternal characteristics that are shining through. And you would see this good side of some sort of moral code that he had. Why would he have a moral code? What will he do next? Those kinds of things.
right, right,
To a Star Wars where, well, this just happens. All right, we're going to go over there now. We're going to do this. Well, now this is going to happen. And you're like, the characters are just in different places at the end of the series. Like, what do we care? What? Nothing's changed. It's like we're just people are just different locations. I'm like, this should have been like an episode, not a season. And when you're connected to something like this, like you said, when you grow up in a world where Star Wars, Star Trek, I mean, all these franchises. You and I are about the same age,
yeah,
so
come on,
everything,
let's get real, okay? Twilight Zone, Outer Limits,
yeah,
right?
all of
In
it.
Search of. I mean, these were
Just
real things in our life.
and I've long said I'll fight people. 1982 is the best year in cinema because of these things that become these landmark things. Like I can remember still debating people in college. Like, what do you mean you don't like the thing? I don't think I can hang out with you. Like, I don't understand what you're not getting.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, what do you mean you don't like Halloween the movie? Like, I don't understand you. You don't understand movies then. Like, you don't understand what it took to make this movie, to change people, to want to make more movies that rip this movie off. Like, I'm with you. I wasn't necessarily because I had sports too, but it was always just about babysitting. It was just about getting you to do things right. And with cinema, it was like I was so subconsciously addicted and attracted to storytelling and journey and the escapism that comes with it. And I think what you're saying is you don't even feel like you can escape anymore because they don't have anything to offer you, right?
Yeah, I was actually I left a tremendous comment on Robert Meyer Burnett's channel once, and I made the comparison to kind of put it in perspective because I didn't, and this was early on. We're talking, this is before new Star Trek, right? This is even before Disney really started losing control of the narrative. You know what I mean? And I tried to put it in perspective because I didn't feel like anybody was getting it at the time. I'm like, Robert, imagine somebody tells you that you're not wanted at the football stadium anymore. We don't want you to like football anymore. You're not allowed to like football anymore. You're the problem. We're going to change football. Football is feminine. And I was like, and like, that is the comparison because that's what it meant to us. It was like football or like baseball. Like, you're not allowed to show up at the Stanley Cup because you're a white dude, like that, or because you're 40
I,
years old, you know.
And I gotta be honest, Steven. They have done that too, right? Like, I mean, I know you're not a sports guy, but during the pandemic, they doubled down on stuff that had already been happening. So then the NBA
Yeah,
puts like Black Lives Matter on uniforms and on the court, and they made
yep.
kneeling a thing. They made they don't referee games anymore. They allow for like basically like just they don't want to do it because they don't want their stars to not be able to showcase the maximum level of their athleticism. They have to put in rules now to make sure they can't take too many games off. They instituted. Did you know they instituted the ghost runner in baseball?
I don't even
That's a
know what
thing
that
now.
is. What is a
So
ghost
when we
runner,
were
Bob?
kids, we played baseball, right? And you didn't have enough people. You had like four people, right? The bases are loaded. Well, we have to have somebody bat, so that there's not
Uh
enough
huh.
people. So you would have a ghost runner on a base, like a pretend person. So you would go ahead and play. Like, so if I had a person on first and second base, you would have a runner on first and a pretend person on second or whatever, and you would play this way to pretend because you didn't have enough people. They would do this they added this in real baseball to speed the game up. And you're like, okay, hold on. So like what you were saying is like you have all of these elements of entertainment, whether I'm making more of a sports analogy with what you're making with your movies and cinema and entertainment analogy,
Right.
but all of this stuff
Right.
culturally is stripped away to go, I know all of you old people and you stodgy people and you people that are is, obes, phobes, whatever people, you don't like what we're doing here. Well, you guys just go somewhere else. And you're like, what? And I think it's like you said earlier, it's like you were ahead of the curve on this piece, and maybe I was ahead of the curve on this piece. I know Stone Loki talks about it was this one, and Gary Neurotic talks about this one, and you get all these different people, and you see it like the lights keep coming on, and that kind of takes us to today. Now what do we do?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, what do we do
to
now?
speak on all of these different angles that we all came from, where we all started
Mm-hmm.
witnessing it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a firm believer in a pantheon of personalities, and each one of us, if we stay focused, can come at very sharply and very wisely, can come at any given problem from a multitude of angles because those angles are actually there. So I'm not surprised that Stone Loki, had his particular angle and Gary had his particular angle. Yeah, of
Right.
course, because we're obviously different personalities and we're all going to come at this from a different origin point. I so yeah, I'm not surprised about that at all. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's actually, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel optimistic, and it's uncanny that my life is turning at roughly about the same time that it feels like something else is turning a corner.
Mm.
And it's not
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
entirely clear. The One Piece thing is
Mm.
probably a really strong earmark for me. I mean, I get choked up just thinking about it. I mean, I'm
It's
watching
true.
reactors on YouTube that don't know anything about the property, aren't big anime fans, and they're not
Check.
really sure going
Check.
in. And with
Did not want to
within the
watch it.
first
Check.
episode, they're like, "I love all of these people. What's going
I'm
on
liking
here?
this.
This
I know.
is
I'm like, I don't. Why do I like? I think my first video was like, I'm not even sure why I like it. These are people I should not like. I like they got the weird, obnoxious fat lady pirate, and they got orange lady,
yep."
orange hair, purple, and green hair guy, and I'm not sure why I like it, but I like it. I don't understand. And then by the time you're into it, you're like,
It it's the same
whoa,
it's the same magic that we grew up with.
yeah,
The Incredible Hulk, right? And the Amazing
hmm,
Spider-Man live action TV shows, they weren't all that to speak of, but they were taking themselves seriously. They believed that they
right,
were, right? So you believed what they were because you could just smell it coming off the TV screen somehow. Like, the reason why we as a species fell in love with Star Trek was because it took itself seriously. They were not messing around. There was no Mel Gibson, Lethal Weapon 4, staring into the camera going, "Aren't we dangerous? Aren't we edgy?"
that's
They
true.
they
And
were serious about being serious.
yeah, and I keep going back to like I'm a big comic book nerd, and I go back to like post Frank Miller and Nesenti was writing Daredevil, and she was a crazy leftist liberal about anti-guns and environmentalism and all that there, but it was still like it was like PSAs from the 80s or PSAs from that time. Like, hey kids, be careful at home was really at the backbone of it, not the derailment of the character. Like, it was just part of the essence of the story of, all right, well, let's show you a situation where someone abuses a situation and it goes badly. That's all. We just show you an example of where it goes badly. We don't go, oh, and all you people at home who don't like this, you're bad. These are bad people. We need to do something about them. And I'm like, okay, hold on. It's all of entertainment has decided they have to become, and I guess that's also what you were saying earlier too about the inexperience of these writers, and there's no life experience, and there's no real appreciation of anything. It's just like they're just, I don't know. I'm still blown away, Steven, they can get these freaking jobs. Remember a day where you have to work up to getting an Avengers job, or you'd have to work up to getting a Disney motion picture and things like that? Now it's like they have no credentials at all. They've been like three things, and they're like indie things. One of them is like something that they liked, I guess, because I've never even heard of it. And we do this as sort of like, I don't want to say our hobby, but our business or whatever. And I'm like, if we don't know what these people are doing or are, how could they be worthy of taking on the responsibility of some of these things? And it just makes my brain pop, you know?
Yeah, that's you know what? I'm a really big believer in um, reframing the question. I learned this term when I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it's a mu state, mu, and it's a I think it's a Japanese statement, but it's a Japanese word, but it's Buddhist in its origins, and it's just like retract the question. You need to reframe the question. The question is not adequate to even begin to come to an answer, right? Um, if we reframe what's going on in the entertainment industry, we would totally understand why these people have a job. And the answer
Okay.
is what we've been crying about. And it's like, you're all activists. You're not entertainers. Why are there
Right.
activists? Because that's what they wanted. They were hired as activists. That's how they got the job. Not because they were talented, but because they were focused on this ideal that they were trying to telegraph to an audience. They platformed the entire entertainment industry.
Right. Yeah, that definitely, and they've started in different arenas, and then so they keep failing upwards, right? So they started in comic books, and they got a Netflix deal, and they had a Netflix show that got some attention, or or they got a what do they call, like, some of these awards, some of these cheesy awards or whatever, would acknowledge them and things like that. So they just keep failing upwards into this activism hierarchy of attention, and then it become like casting and marrying them for, well, we want to do this black agenda film, let's go get this black guy, let's get this Asian lady to direct this Asian film, and things like that. And I think it's compounded by the one thing I wanted to kind of put this out there. Now it's going to be a little bit of a conversation turn for us, but I think we can pick up where what I'm going to go for here is this is a study, and I want to just briefly touch on it. I want to read some from it. This is actually from Health and Human Services. So this was actually released in May, and it's the Surgeon General issues an advisory about the effects of social media use has on youth mental health, and it goes through and it talks about how there can be positives, blah, blah, blah. But then it says social media use by young people is nearly universal, with up to 95% of young people between 13 to 17 reporting use of social media platform, more than a third saying they use it almost constantly. So that means roughly 33 to 40% are pretty much on it all day, every day. It's on, it's open, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this goes through and starts discussing about some of the harmful side effects, right? Some of the socioeconomical factors, even. Adolescents report social media helps them feel more accepted, so they're getting their acceptance that way. right? Like they have to have people that can support them through tough times. It's not someone they physically know or they can get a hug from. It's someone on the internet, right? The place that they have to show their creative side. They don't actually draw on paper anymore. It's only through something that's done on social media. And they feel connected to their friends' lives, not by going to the movies with them like you and I would have, but by having these connections through whatever app that may be. I
Right.
think that actually embodies the people that we're talking about, even though the study is about adolescents. I think it's about all of us. I think it's pretty much the statistics are just going to be different because some people have jobs and lives and different whatever. But I think the cause the cause and the results are going to be very similar for us adults. I think the people we're talking about. Oh, I lost you for a second there.
Yeah.
The people that we're talking about are those people. And I think that's what kind of is compounding the situation even more so because they don't have sort of like the real life experiences. They're only working in this like digital arena of content creation. And I don't know. Do you know? Do they even like have sort of like the social infrastructure pre-COVID, like with parties and stuff like they did before? Like I don't even know if all that stuff back like it was before or not. I don't even know.
I actually I heard an announcer on a news program while I was doing laundry, and she was talking about a party she went to on this. It was a block party, like a civic
Mm-hmm.
oriented block party. It was there were radio personalities there and local vendors and the usual block party nonsense. And she was saying how much of a beautiful pleasure it was to see all of these people this close to each other post COVID. I'm like what? We're like 8 months post COVID for crying out loud. What are you talking about? So it was kind of astonishing that it was still brand new to even her,
Mm.
and she's a 30 plus 30 something year old radio announcer, on a
Right.
LA radio station. So it
Hmm.
is still very real. Um, I have been astonished with the youth culture's hypochondriatic nature for a long time. This notion of personalized band aids as a reality. I'm not even talking about it as a metaphor. I'm talking about in the grocery store, there are branded band aids so that your
Mm-hmm.
kid can feel comfortable wearing this band aid because it has his favorite superheroes on it. You know, like
Right.
that kind of pandering. Um, I don't think I can use it as a metaphor, but because it's a physical reality. You could
Hmm.
catching more clues on how I think about these things. I believe that the universe manifests things physically, and there's evidence out there if you're willing to look for it. Um, there's an entire youth culture, and they're surrounding me as I speak right now, um, that have been raised, and I don't want to call it indoctrinated because I think that that's too villainized. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yes, demeaning.
they're living in a world. Yeah, it's not necessary because it seems like indoctrination to us, but our generation had stuff that our parents and our grandparents thought was obnoxious also, right? So it's a generational thing, and I'm a big believer that we won't recognize the future when it happens. That the future is going to
Yeah.
happen and it's going to manifest in a certain way, and we're not going to recognize its genius until it's
Hmm.
completely manifested. So the reality that's happening right now, this infancy of global communication, where the kid standing right next to me at the coffee house in line may be chatting with a friend of theirs that's in another part of the planet. And there
Yeah.
may be live, real time translation happening in that conversation, and they don't even know it because the app is doing
Yeah.
all of that functionality. So this
Because we're already
infancy,
we're already there with a lot of that too, right? Because I gotta be honest. There's times where I have to be honest. I will move from one area at my day job to another area, and I'm listening to a show, a YouTuber, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and they're broadcasting from, let's say, Texas or California or
Mm-hmm.
Kansas or Canada, and you're like, so I'm standing next to a person next to me, but I'm listening to someone who's in, thousands of miles away, and just our
Mm-hmm.
connectivity and our interactions have already evolved and changed
Yeah.
almost seamlessly. And and we, pointed out in the study, these kids are way more connected than you and I are. So like you
Yeah.
were saying, they just take all that for granted. That's the normal state. That's not
And
like,
again, I think that might be the wrong word, taking it for granted. I don't think that that's necessarily the proper word to use. Um, no more than we took television or cable TV or the VHS or the game systems that we grew up with. We weren't taking those for advantage, just like our parents weren't taking the car for advantage. It was
so
just a
it's
reality of their time.
the new, I hate this term, but I'll have to use it. What's another word for saying new normal?
Oh God, yeah,
Right?
I cringe just at you saying it too.
I
I
hate that.
get
I
the
hate
vibe
that.
you're.
I hate that phrase, but that's the new normal, right? The new normal is that type of connectivity, that this many people listen to YouTube. This many people are on Twitter. This many people are on all of these different social media platforms. This is how they would, they're less interested in maybe the friends around them because of the possibility of rejection, or they're not as important, versus I can just be out into this social sphere that's safer, and I can kind of ease into finding people that will accept me, and those are the people that I talk about with my problems or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even doing this YouTube thing is kind of a trap for the exact same thing for us, right? I mean, I know I have found that I spend time with closer conversations with people that are doing this because I have more in common with the people that are doing this than I do other people in my real life that don't do this. So a lot of conversations that I'll have on the phone, for instance, or messaging back and forth, are people that I have more in common with because of this digital platform and this type of digital communication. Where in real life, I have a different type of communication that's more limited because I don't have as much in common with them anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I grew up. Um, I grew up in nerd culture during the '70s and '80s. So uh, I faced off against bullies that were bullying other nerds. I was the tough guy of my nerd community. So I would be the hero that would step forward and be like, stop hassling Oscar. Okay, enough already. It's like, oh yeah, Cecino, you want to take this out in the yard? I'd be like, yeah, let's go. Let's take this out in the yard. Because I had watched all my hero programs, and that's what a good man did with his buddies. You know, um, so I'm not one of these people that doesn't understand the minority that is currently banging their head against the wall and annoying the shit out of most fans. Um, I
It's
get
true.
that. I understand that minority better than they think I do. So
Right.
it's been, when you talked about, how does this feel, this whole modern cinema thing, that's the, the ironic double edged sword. It pains me to see cinema going this way. And at the same time, it pains me that I've been accused of being something that I'm not. I'm actually closer to the communities that are annoying us right now. And they lost an ally by accusing me without even a trial.
That's true. I was hearing
I was,
people today. Yeah. I was just gonna say I heard people today. They're talking about Little Mermaid. Oh no, it was Hamilton, and because they were just pop culture stuff started down a rabbit's hole, and I was only like halfway. They were only going to halfway connect with me because I'm not a fan of most of the stuff that they were talking about.
right.
And they got to Hamilton, and the one made a comment about somebody that doesn't like that, and then how it'll be that person's lost by not liking it. And I thought to myself, see, you didn't even get to the point of trying to find out why someone didn't like it. You just don't like them because they don't like the same thing you do. So then I'm left with the
right?
trap though, Steven, and this is kind of where we ended up. We've driven all around the neighborhood now to get to a place where I wanted us to meet, and that was like
Yeah, please, let's
my
point us
point.
back in the right direction again. But yeah,
Yeah, because
because I can
my
get off
problem
track.
is no. My problem is I just feel like I'm becoming the old man, yelling at the clouds. But this stuff over here is good. It's like meanwhile all of this stuff navigates through, and you're right. I can go and I watch. I was exactly the person you described earlier with One Piece, right? That was me.
Right.
Boom, right? Sure. Top Gun Maverick, Mario, Sisu. I run down my list. These are the good things. Blah 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 blah. And I'm the one that will do. I will watch it so you don't have to. I will watch many of the bad things and try to document why many of these things are wrong or why there's problems. And I've had people talk to me about the videos going, well, and usually it comes down to qualifications. Exceedingly rare will someone say, you're completely wrong, you're an idiot, whatever. And most of those are just frivolous comments. But people who are really sincerely going, you really are wrong on this, blah, 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 blah. They usually are just like, yeah, but that matters to you. Why do you care so much? It's like gradient. It's like, well, that doesn't really bother me. And I'm like, okay, well, it's wrong. Like it's a problem. Like, if you don't see it that way, that's fine. But you can't ignore the fact that this is not a problem. But at what point do we aren't we just are we? I don't know. I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to sound like our parents. Or like, well, when I was young, TV was pretty good. When I was young, movies were good. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend all of my time becoming that either. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I kind
No,
of feel
I
like I'm
know.
the guy trying to have a healthy diet. I don't know where are you coming down on how you want to navigate that and how you see that playing out for you moving forward.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's just mention the elephant in the room, and that's um, we're not supposed to label them incorrectly, but they're allowed to call us boomers.
I
Okay.
don't get called boomer very often. It's pretty rare. Pretty rare.
Well,
I get
I
the
mean the
white
rough
card
equivalent
if I
thereof.
yeah, I get the white card if I criticize Wakanda Forever or something like that. But I don't
Right.
get boomer too much. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I get the white card.
So
Yeah.
I kind of stopped saying, "Oh, back when I was a kid," blah 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 blah,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, yeah,
prefacing
yeah.
it with that because they start glazing over. When you
Mm.
start talking like that, eyes roll up into the back of their head and you've lost them. So there's got to be another way to come in and attack on that sort of thing. Um,
And I think I
the
spoke
culture,
metaphorically because I don't think you've ever heard me say it that way. But I was trying to speak in general terms of me. I'm spending all this time generating content that points to good things, and then I kind of keep going back to let's say there's 20 points of content, right? And if I'm doing these five things that suck, they don't make me want to do five more that suck. They make me want to do 10 that are good. Does that make sense? Not only
yeah,
for my own physical mental health, but also for posterity's sakes to counterbalance the negativity that's in the world by these things that are so bad. But over time, I feel like then I'm just running a vintage video store, and I have nothing that's really relevant to anyone new. And I have like, well, these one things I like, and it's like I'm like, how do I balance the diet? How do I advise the diet for the folks to go?
you know, I I make suggestions because I love all you guys. Okay, and I
Mm-hmm,
make suggestions on a lot of people's comment sections. And one of the sections I've made, one of the comments I've made, roughly in a bunch of different formats, and that's the way we come at this so that we can run the video store and stay relevant at the same time is to do
mm-hmm.
comparative reviews.
Okay.
You take a show that this show is supposed to remind you of, like The Mandalorian and the Dollar series with
Mm-hmm.
with Clint Eastwood, and
Sure.
you compare them and you say this is why this is genius, and that's why The Mandalorian is attempting to emulate it. But I don't remember Clint Eastwood having a pocket puppy,
Yeah. Right. Right. And or just
because
doing mindless adventures of, I'll go over here and do this, and then wait, by the way, we don't need any of that. We didn't need a horse after all. We could have just walked over here 20 feet. We didn't even need a horse. Like you're
You know,
just like,
I
yeah,
don't mind
I
an
got it.
anthology. As a matter of fact, I wish there were more television shows out there that were anthologies. Um, I've never watched a single episode of it, but when I heard the seasonal arc premise of American Horror Story, I was like, that's friggin' genius. Every
Hmm.
single season is basically hosted by roughly the same cast, but they've reimagined the horror that the cast is dealing with. So it's almost like
Hmm.
Carol Burnett's players do a spider horror story, an alien horror story, a ghost
Hmm.
horror story. And that to me is genius because now you could just run that series for infinity because all you got to
Right.
do is just come up with the next horror and write a whole season of it. And you don't have to worry about last season's connectivity. It's like the audience fell in love with the actors, not the characters. It's almost like it's aware of itself at that point. So that's genius to me. And I always loved Outer Limits. I've always loved Twilight Zone. And for all intents and purposes, Star Trek was actually an anthology, but the crew didn't change. Each planet was a completely separate storyline that the crew was dealing with. The crew was the bottle, the story was the and whatever anthological whatever the word is premise. So it's almost like you had a Twilight Zone episode that was being witnessed by the Star Trek crew.
Right.
And they're not doing that
Yeah.
anymore. This idea of continuous storytelling where every single episode needs to be attached to itself, where our main characters actually need to grow, as opposed to the characters within the changing story are the only things that need to change. Captain Kirk is the Rock of Gibraltar. He's not supposed to change.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to
Orville.
grow.
Yeah. Orville was the only one that was. I mean, Orville was like that.
Kind of, but it sounded to me like they were still tracking the crew as if they were an evolving thing. But they're in charge of a
Uh,
starship with
they
control of
had.
like planet destroying weaponry. Why would they need to
Well, they
grow?
had many. They had some mini story arcs and things like that that were there, and there were some cause and effects. I think that were fine. I think that if there was any criticism I would have of like original series Star Trek, sometimes that there would be cause and effects from things that would happen in an episode, and we would ignore the fact that there could be a cause and effect based on the next planet or planets or whatever. Orville didn't do that, but I think Orville was similar to what you're getting at. But I think so your compare and contrast. I think is very interesting because you would be able to kind of set up at least, even if you don't go too, even if you're not dive deeping into like a side by side with, let's say, Good and Bad the Ugly and Mando season one, you at least could name drop Good, Bad the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, whatever. You could at least name drop those things so people could understand some compare and contrast. I think this is where certain YouTubers are really, really good. Like, I mean, we're friends with Copa Catania, right? And I think he's kind of
Right.
like he has that critical drinker approach to commentary and humor set with these different clips. So therefore, it allows us to kind of have that compare and contrast and comparative storytelling in a video. My approaches tend to be a lot more of a visceral reaction, but I do hear what you're saying. And maybe I need
Yeah.
to do a little bit more of sort of like a reflection of, you know, because like usually what I'll do, like with season two of Loki for me, where I'm at with season two of Loki is I'm frustrated by, maybe this is a bigger problem than just Loki, but I'll use Loki as an example. The inconsistency of a story, right? The wasted time. We'll do something I think is great, and then we just do something that just completely derails the momentum, and then we'll do something maybe good over here. So you end up with like 12% of good, if not great, and then all this other crap that's all it's wrapped up in. And I need to do a better job of pointing that back to maybe something that is definitely more solid and not wasted time. I think that's probably what you're getting at.
Yeah, it's yeah, we're presenting our arguments from a series of pieces of evidence that they're
Mm,
not only ignorant of, but maybe even blocking mentally.
resistant
Like,
to.
I'm not going to watch your boomer show so that I can
Mm,
accumulate evidence that I know is already wrong.
hmm.
That
That's
they've
interesting.
already got a battlefront up. You know,
Hmm.
this would be like two lawyers arguing, and neither one of them is using each other's case stories.
See what I usually do, and tell me where I can improve. Is I will try to find out something that you like, and then I'll try to find good things to recommend to you. So, for instance, we ended up down the rabbit hole with this lady that I work with, and we got to Wednesday on Netflix. She likes Wednesday, and I'm like, okay, well now I know she has Netflix, and two, I know she likes sort of like a more family friendly, jovial, sort of fun little ride. She's okay with like fantastical, environment, that kind of thing. And that's why I went directly to One Piece because I'm like, One Piece is brand new. Did you see that one? They're like, no. So, well, did you like Pirates of the Caribbean? Yes. You like Pirates of the Caribbean. You like Wednesday. Imagine this fictional universe with pirates. One Piece is the treasure that they're looking for. It's full of great characters, great story arcs, things like that. Watch 4 or 5 episodes. It's only like 8 or 10, but I can tell you what, you're just going to have fun. Don't you want to just have fun sometimes? And usually, I've never missed with that sort of breakdown or approach. With a guy, he's more like us, like toxic guy. Let's see, Die Hard. I said, well, I gave him a whole list. Like, well, you're obviously on Amazon Prime, right? So have you watched Reacher? No. Have you watched Terminal List? No. Have you? So it's kind of like, okay, how about you start watching all of these? And so that's all I get. I get regular updates on where he is, on these fun journeys with me.
Right.
And I think that may be the better thing to do. I love what Zax does, right? Because he does his, was it Wednesday? Why is it good? Ugh. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Zax.
Yeah.
Was
That
it
gets
good Wednesday? I'm going to get the title wrong, but every Wednesday something's good, and that's what we talk about. Every Wednesday I watch it. So I love that because it's it's like you're an encyclopedia of some of these recommendations, and that's what I love. I want to figure out a way to marry that diet, you know what I mean, so that no one gets like toxicity on having too much negativity. Like, I don't want to see people continuing to stay down that rabbit hole and then just shut off completely. There are good things. It's just we got to keep trying to find them.
we're not living in a word of mouth world anymore.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Well, that's
You
true.
know,
And
I
not enough
mean,
of it. And not enough of it for sure.
and not an and yeah, we're living. There may be word of mouth, but it feels much more like mechanical telegraphing. Like, people don't have opinions; they have bullet points. I guess if I can
Okay.
use those two terms, comparatively. But this is something that we're all talking about, but not really talking about it. They're like, everybody's using the same bullet points. Everybody's making the same, earmarked comments. Like, there's that meme of every news network basically saying exactly the same thing over and over and over again, as if they
Oh,
were all reading from the same script.
I
That's what
I
we've
lived
got
through
right
that.
now.
I lived through that. Do you, I don't, you might be old enough to remember the moment. I remember the moment because I was working in the news at the time, right? I was doing news on the side,
Wow.
right? When gravitas broke. Gravitas is not a word we were using. Sorry for any of you at home. Spoiler alert. Woke up one day and all of the anchors, all of the news, all of was referring to that moment with gravitas. And I was like, huh? I mean, one or two would be one thing, right? And there are like press releases that go around, but this was like clearly a mind worm. Like, it was everywhere. My business partner and I were like, well, if we didn't know they were all sharing a brain, we know they are now. Holy
Right.
cow, that was crazy. Yeah. And
And
we've
the
seen it
the
now multiple
crazy
times.
thing, the crazy thing about that, and the part, the part that nobody gets, because not all of us watch everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the people in our community are watching everything, right? They're conspiracy theorists. I'm sorry, for lack of a better term, that's basically we're all trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. So we watch everything to try and pick up clues. But the normal people didn't notice the gravitas event because they're only watching one news network.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And you could take news network out of the equation of the sentence and put Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever franchise you want, just plug it in there. Football, baseball, soccer, and basketball. It doesn't matter. That's all they watch, and that's all they have time to watch.
Yeah.
So
Toxic
therefore, they
fandom.
don't see. They don't
Right.
see.
Toxic fandom was one. It's like, so if they only know of certain IPs, they only think of those fans as toxic and not realize that they've applied that term to just about everybody's IP. You know what I
Right,
mean? But it's like
right.
they're Trekkies or Star Wars. They're not the other. So they only know, yeah, I see that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And because of the
It's funny.
solidification of no word of mouth, there's no crossover conversation
Right.
where
Right.
the
And they're not
basketball
connecting the
people are
dots
talking to the
faster.
football people and going, "Hey, did you
Right.
notice that the same stupid nonsense is happening in both sports games? You know, it's
Yeah.
both ball games." And they'd be like,
Yeah. They're
"No,
not
I didn't
connecting the
notice that. What are you
dots.
talking about?" Right,
Yeah, they're not connecting the dots as fast. It takes a lot longer for them to sort of pick up some breadcrumbs and make a comment. What do you mean they're going to rate? What do you mean they're going to race swap Little Mermaid? What?
right,
Like, huh?
right.
Well, they've race swapped 16 other things. Why did Little Mermaid matter to you? Well, because Little Mermaid mattered to you. It
Yeah,
didn't. It didn't matter till it got home to you. Now it's like welcome to the party. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well,
It's like I
imagine
keep saying
you.
that about certain IPs. I'm like, yeah, they haven't gotten to one that you care about yet. That's
Right.
usually what I mean by that. Yeah, it's like Harry
It
Potter
was.
when they remake Harry Potter and it's Harriet Potter with her transgender black friend Ronaldo and Hermione the lesbian with the purple hair that shaved on the side, and yeah, it's just yeah, that's then it'll matter to those people. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Wow.
Yeah.
Why should we
When.
have hope though, Stephen? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Answer. Just make your
Why should
statement
we have
first, and then
hope?
we'll go.
Well,
Yeah.
when when um when sassy cannoli Sasquatch
Mm-hmm.
came back from Little Mermaid with her reaction, it was almost as if she had finally been red pilled, right?
Yeah.
And there was another
Yeah.
young woman, I forget her name exactly. She's been on and off whether or not she wants to do YouTube because she gets too emotionally attached. But I telegraphed onto Twitter her reaction after watching Barbie with her brother, and how emotionally distraught she became that this was the message. And she's like, I don't expect anybody to have my opinion. I only know that this is how I felt when I was in the theater. And it was like she had been red pilled as well. I know that they were both red pilled long before that, but the reality was it was almost as if they were speaking the words honestly and sincerely for the first time, because a
Yeah.
property had genuinely violated
Yes.
their trust.
Yeah, go back to that conversation I had today too. And I say today, I mean the day that we're recording this, folks, not the day that you're watching this. So I apologize for that. But Little Mermaid, and she was talking about her daughter. Daughter's got red hair. Daughter liked Little Mermaid the way Little Mermaid was, and she hates Little Mermaid. And they were discussing it because she says, "But that's the one where she was like me." And to the point, Stephen, like they would like dress like Little Mermaid for Halloween, that kind of thing. Like it was a very much an identity thing, like very on the
Sure.
on the nose identity stuff, right? So, and I made the I created the awkward pause in the room because I said, "Well, she has a pretty good justified reason to say that." I said, "The irony is Disney just didn't want to do the easy thing, which was she should have just done. They should have just done a movie about her sister because she has a black sister, and then just had Little Mermaid show up at some point. It would have been a win-win for everybody. No one would have even cared.
That's
It
what
would have
they
made a
did
lot
with
more money."
Ahsoka.
Correct. So when I said that, it was like a bomb in the room in their brains because it never occurred to them that such an easy solution was there. It was as though they were forced to accept this race swapped second rate token version of this character. Like we're all supposed to accept all of that as normal now. And for them, it never even occurred to them that such an easy solution was already there. Like, well, she has a black sister. Like that's the one they should do. And they were all like sitting there like, she has a black sister, and they
Yeah.
didn't do that instead. And we went through all this hoopla. Like the one was talking about the son, and the son didn't understand why they were all different races and things like that. And I'm like, because they were all brain snapped, they were all broken, and they didn't even understand the context of what break, because they're not all red pilled yet. They're all at different stages, right? So it's like different levels of the red pilling, like waking up to like it's all broken. You guys are just not with us yet. All right, with all that. We got to wrap. We got to get to a point where we can kind of. I got to get our car back, at least driving towards the driveway. Why should we have hope, though? How do we get our content better? How do we get a better, healthy diet? And how do we deliver that to more people in a palatable way?
Um, First off, um, I've always felt this vibe that what's actually going down is as it may be entirely unconscious, but the reality of it is that there is a massive, perhaps with nobody at the wheel, reverse psychology campaign going on. And what's slowly starting to happen is that it's coming into effect, and people are just being, I've had enough of this. I don't care about Star Wars or Star Trek or anything like that. I'm just sick of all the angst. I'm sick of turning on the television set and not getting satisfied. I want a divorce.
Hmm.
And I think that that vibe is finally reaching some sort of critical mass in the population worldwide. And anime is a part of that, and manga is a part of that, and old British television is a part of that, and old cinema from Hollywood and the celebration of it. And people are like, why can't I find my favorite movie? What's going on? You know,
Hmm.
uh, what do
Right.
you mean they're going to reimagine uh, uh, Frasier? What are you talking about? I love Frasier. You can't. What do you wait? What is this? What the Star Trek and Star Wars people are always complaining about? Because this sucks. That's
Right.
the the tiniest spark of hope that I actually see is that it's reaching a critical mass where they big gigantic Titanic sized quotation marks around it, they have gotten confident enough to think that they could do the same framework on any property. And they are sorely mistaken about that because the
And do you
grannies
think
and the
that?
grandmas will not allow it.
Do you think we're at least a little bit into the financial burden of that too? With at least not every company, but at least
Yeah,
well,
that's
first
the
off,
other
yeah,
one.
we can say almost every company, except for Sony, as far as like the money pit that is the streaming service money pit. That this
Mm.
concept that they can all be Netflix and not look at Netflix bottom line and realize Netflix was just dumping billions of money, hand over fist, into this mess, and they all just thought they could just do it too. And then they went through this first phase, and now it's like eventually there's just not enough humans, and humans will all just ping around different memberships to get what we want. Like we just don't need you all at the same time. The only
It
way your
never made
market
any
works is if
sense.
we. It makes no sense whatsoever, and there's no. And again, we could have freaking hour-long conversations. There's no event television anymore. There's hardly event movies anymore.
Hmm.
It's all about I'll just get to it when I get to it. I'll wait till I said it today. I'll watch it when it comes on streaming. I don't want to see
Yeah.
it. And it was like I was asked about a movie, and I've already, and it's like they've created such a watered down entertainment bucket for me that they're just now waking up to the fact that I actually have more leverage. Like I have so much stuff that I can choose from. I always go back to this from Angry Canadian because Angry Canadian did like the noob stream with me about comic books, and I said, well, yeah, of
Mm.
course. You walk into a comic book shop and there's 60 to 80 years of stuff in there. You don't know where to start. You need some nerd like me to like, I don't know, curate it for you. Well, now they have the same problem because it's everything. There's this many decades of TV, this many decades of movies, of comic books, of literature, fantasy, sci-fi. Pick your poison. Good luck. There's a lifetime of crap that we can do to enjoy ourselves. We do not have to do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know that theater that I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, at the beginning of this
Yeah.
recording, they never showed new movies
Mm.
ever. It was my introduction to cinema was through a revival theater.
Hmm.
We went and sat in Monster Week, Planet of the Apes Week, Sci-Fi Week in a
Mm-hmm.
theater,
Mm-hmm.
not on cable, not on television,
Right.
not on streaming services, not because of a national holiday. It was just this week, kids, the matinees will all be science fiction from the 50s. And that's how I got to know, Forbidden Planet and, and everything else. Godzilla, they had Godzilla Week.
Hmm. See, that would be so much fun and easy to do. I actually, because we kind of joke, there's this movie theater bias. It's going to go broke. They treat people like crap in there. They're not spending any
Oh,
money. They're not spending any money to keep the place up. So now it's like getting dumpy. And I'm like, I'd love to own this place. Of course, Mrs. Pops has a panic attack. Like, I might actually do something like this. And I
ha,
said, well, first thing is, all the money has to be done to making this to be a very pleasant experience to be here. You need to at least
mm-hmm.
enjoy it. The bathrooms need to be clean. The food's got to be okay the way you want it. As cheap as we can get it, that can be good. And then I think we need to bring back a little bit of what you're saying, Stephen. I don't think it'd be that hard. I could even get churches to sponsor the license it would take to get a certain faith-based film in a theater for a week or two. You
Yeah,
know what I
and
mean?
you were talking
Like,
about
well, it's
Fathom
the
events,
anniversary.
and
Correct. Exactly. Fathom events is like this big thing, and there's just not enough theater. And by the way, I have a great relationship with the Fathom people for years, and I constantly interact with them and tell them this, these people are screwing you. They do not promote your thing. I've gone to screenings for Fathom, and it won't even
mhm,
be on the display. It'll
yeah,
just be blank. Go down to Cinema 11. They didn't even put it in there. Most of these were digital, where you just have to type something in. Come on.
right.
Fathom, this is a money thing for this theater. The tickets for those are never discounted. They're like double or triple some of the regular matinee prices and stuff like that. So please stop already. Um, so yeah, I couldn't agree more to see that this pool of entertainment needs to be more accessible in a way. But we broke the world. How do I get them to go back to a theater then and not stay at home to do it or on their phones,
By making it an event. Okay, like
making it something
here's the
cool to
other
do?
part. Here's the other part of my hope. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
although the world is evolving very quickly around us, the human body has not evolved. We all still have the
Mm,
same stomach. We all still have the same guts. We all still have the same brains. There may be people out there that disagree with me just because of the face of Twitter, but I disagree with them. These are still human beings reacting to the world around them, okay?
right.
They will eventually feel it in their bones that something's wrong.
Hmm.
And when you feed them a really, really good meal, they won't be able to deny it because
Yeah,
they're
that is
still
true.
very young. They're still very, very young. And you could say, no, no, some of these people are in their late 20s and early 30s. Yeah, well, they were raised to be 30-year-old puppies. So they're
Yeah, but
much
even
younger than we were when we were even 21.
but even if we were 50s, and so there used to be this theater in Tampa. It's this old theater. It had been completely retrofitted. It's been modernized and brought up to speed. It's beautiful. They kept all the old woodwork in there and stuff like that. It's beautiful. And they, instead of doing just regular old movies, which they had been doing, they started doing sing-alongs, Stephen. So they started doing like Greatest Showman. But it's not like Greatest Showman. Like, you're not going to go and sit down and watch a movie. It's a sing-along. You can't even get tickets to these. They sell out as fast as they announce them for these sing-alongs. Now, that may not be for you and me, but it becomes an event and a fun experience. And once you do it once, you have a positive experience to do it again. And you go, well, maybe I wouldn't do Greatest Showman again, but I would love to do X, Y, or Z. And I think that it may be a challenge for us to be creative enough to come up with enough of those examples and add a way to rebrand something or a way to bring them into those life experiences to give them the emotional connection like you were saying, because you're right, at the end of the day we're still just humans, right? So when we go through certain life experiences, we're going to respond a certain way. The stimuli might have changed. The stimuli might be social media. It might be on their phones. It might be from a person that's in another country. But reality is a lot of their human reactions to that, a lot of the human emotional and gut stimuli and reaction to that are same as it was when we were their age. It doesn't matter. So,
And you could
yeah,
you could take that one step further, Pops, because there's an entire generation of Western children that not only get, but can't believe how intoxicating it is to read manga. And we're talking about an entirely different culture, speaking an entirely different language from an isolated nation. So,
true.
yeah, of course, when you put a good hot meal in front of somebody, they're going to smell it and realize they've been missing out their whole life.
So I think part of my hope, and I think that you'll see where I'm going with this is we're nerdy though because we didn't really have this gap. But let's be honest, for a long period of time, records went away, right?
Yes.
LPs,
Yes.
and now they're back at Walmart.
Yep. And I
So
remember when they showed up at what was it, Anthology or whatever. There was a small outlet store, like a franchised outlet store, and my niece brought home some vinyl and a record player, and I was like, what is this? What is this novelty
mhm.
in front of me? And she's like, don't you know? It's a completely revival thing. It's so cool. It's just like, it's just like whatchamacallit, when they reintroduced instant photography again,
Oh,
and all the
Polaroids, yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, when they
yeah, right,
reintroduced
hmm
Polaroids, and the kids were just
yeah,
head over
bonkers for it.
heels. Yeah.
So my hope is they'll realize Frank Miller and Alan Moore know how to write comic books. You know what I mean? Like they'll be, someone's going to go, yeah, I understand all this, but that original Star Trek, that was freaking great. You know what I
I'm
mean?
I'm I'm
There'll be a
following somebody right
revival of
now
some of these things. Yeah.
that I've always said, you can go back to the earliest recordings that are still available on YouTube of me joining panels. I have always talked about my fetish for watching reaction channels, and I watch a pantheon of international reaction channels. There's a young lady up in Norway. I know another young lady who's living in Canada, but she's recently immigrated from Russia. And these are people from vastly different cultures reacting to, and I only watch the shows that I am familiar enough with to glean their reactions. And
Okay.
there's this one young lady who was watching. She was given a list of best Star Trek episodes to watch,
Right.
and watching her see them for the first time, because she was never on board with Star Trek, but to see her fall in love, she's like already got her favorite characters, she's already made up her
Right.
mind on her favorite episodes, and she has
Gotcha.
already stated on multiple occasions, I can't believe I've been missing out my whole life on this. Why didn't I not watch this sooner? And maybe that's just her reaction for her fans, but I can see it in her eyes because I've seen her be disingenuous and I've seen her be totally sincere. And I know the
Hmm.
difference because I've watched her long enough. I've seen her react to Lawrence of Arabia, and I've seen her react to the Dollar series,
That's
the Money
awesome.
series or whatever. So I, I,
Yeah.
I
No,
know the
I
spectrum
see
with
this.
her.
I tend to do it. I don't do it. I haven't done it recently because I keep doing this, which is, a lot of work, and maybe I need to take a break and fit one of these in. I love reaction videos to old music that we love.
That's how
You
I
know what I
got
mean?
into it in the first place.
Yeah, watching
Rapper or hip
somebody
hop
listen to
artists listen
Black
to,
Betty for the first time, and you're like,
yep,
they're going, their eyes just come out of their head. You're like, holy cow! You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
So it
yep.
energizes you. So let me ask you this. This is okay. We'll close with this. This is a business idea. So if I magic wand, I get charged of Paramount tomorrow, right? Like, all right, we're gonna start from scratch. What if we were to pull everything and 8 o'clock on Sundays will be the first time you can see Star Trek on TV for the first time in 6 months or whatever. It comes back one episode a week. You know what I mean? And you bring it back with the promise that and at the end of X season is the 4K release of that season, and then something like that. And you just kind of have to you build your model back up with certain pieces. Disney used to have the trick with the vault, and they don't do that either anymore. Like things go in, things come out, things go in, things come out. Licensing things out maybe, but I think they have to manufacture events and reasons for people to care about some of this stuff to get some of that first reaction involvement. I think you know what I mean.
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah,
and we already have proof on the table that such an idea would work because the earliest form of cable was Turner Movie Classics.
true. Yeah,
Okay. And Nick at Night captured an entire generation with
yep,
revivals of I Love Lucy. Okay.
yep. And TV
Girls,
Land. Hmm.
that's right. And TV Land as well started showing game show revivals.
I know. I
Where it's just
watched
like,
them.
wait, this game show appeared like 30 years ago. I can't believe that people are getting an audience for this, but they
I
do.
just didn't
This
have a
is
physical
exactly what I
copy. I was
mean.
happy to watch freaking Match Game because I didn't have a physical copy of Match Game, and I love freaking Match Game.
They're
Yeah.
showing Price is Right with Bob Barker on cable right now, or on whatever right now. You know, people who loved Rocky are going and finding the Muppets episode where Rocky appears just to see
Yeah.
him be on the Muppets. You know, so
Yeah. And I think that
imagine
they
you get a
just, yeah.
network that does something like that where this celebrity is coming out with a new movie and they're an older celebrity. So that network brings up everything that they were
Mm,
ever on and does a revival to kind of telegraph
right.
why we love this person.
Tulsa King season 2 is going to drop, and next thing you know, the Rocky Muppet Show is licensed. Every Rocky is promoted. Every Expendables is promoted. You
Yep,
just run up this whole run up
yep.
the month before, the lead
And
up to this big release of Tulsa King and things like that. And
and
yeah, why not?
you could even make this a bonus for anybody contracting such a show because now
Mm,
you could tell Stallone, hey, this season we'll give you a cheap we'll ask for a cheaper price so we don't have to pay you as much for the show, but we'll give you a higher residual on this revival package
right, right.
where we're going to bring
Yeah.
all of the stuff you've ever been on and we're going to have it under a single banner the way they do a box set.
And I bet that's even cheaper than we think because I bet there's like he would probably just go, you know what, instead of that, I just want the rights to this instead. Could I just have that? You know,
Yeah,
there's something that he
exactly.
wants.
Exactly.
They all have these little pet
Exactly.
projects and things that they want. There's always stories on how things get bottled. So,
Yeah, well, what did I
Steven,
hear? Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
no, no, no. I thought we should probably wrap. We went a little on our time, but I wanted to give you one last thought on encouraging people about having a healthy content diet. Another thought on trying to stay on the positive side of this situation.
Yeah, that's and people don't know this, but behind the scenes, when I telegraph something out there on Twitter or I make a comment on YouTube, actually, this guy Dread Roberts, Dread Pirate
Hmm.
Roberts,
Hmm.
um, I said something to him once, and he didn't understand where the hell I was even coming from. He'd never heard about me before, and I'd never seen a comment from me. And I'm just like, look, I was in a mood. I watched one of your things, and here's a list of things I think you need to change. No big deal. Just coming from the heart, believe me, I wouldn't comment unless I cared, right? At all. Um, so when I say something, I've thought about it a lot. It's not just a spontaneous event. I spend 10 or 15 minutes before I tweet. Okay, I don't mess around, and I'm very pleased when I get reactions to that tweet. So um, anyway, we need to stop or figure out some way to step around the pitfall of complaining. I don't know exactly how we do that. I think that lampooning, taking cues from the old Mad magazine and
Hmm.
Cracked, where we have fun with our lampoon, we have fun with our criticism. Um, Make it something joyous so that even the people that are agreeing with you see it in a new perspective, because that's now a joke. You've now made not a parody, not a pun, but a lampoon where
Hmm.
you're enjoying how insufferably miserable this property is. And you're not getting miserable because you're a jokester, not a trickster,
Yeah.
but a jokester.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
Ramp up my lampooning.
not
Hmm.
necessarily even mocking, just
Oh,
like,
that's a fine line for me. I don't do lampooning as well as I do mocking. I don't. Yeah, this is gonna be. See, look at what he did here, folks. He gave me a really really tough task because everybody knows I'm watching Loki right now, and I have a hard time because my wife loved Loki, and
oh, well, that is the Tom Hiddleston Hiddleston effect.
oh yeah, yeah.
It,
Why do you think she sit through freaking Kong Skull Island so many times? Yet I can't get her to watch Godzilla. You
yeah.
know what I mean? So
Oh,
yeah, I know, I got it, I got
no,
it. But
your
it,
your reveal about Lost Boys with Mrs. Pops,
oh,
that
Jason
cracked
Patrick
me
is so
up. There were
pretty.
tears running down my face. When I hear about the older mature gals still nursing a bit of a crush on some older guy that like doesn't even look like that,
Yeah,
I love that stuff because
yeah,
that just
Jason
reminds
Patrick.
me that there's still girls deep down inside.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
Love
trust
it.
me. The only reason
Love it.
that she would like watch any of the Hemsworth movies, right? Hiddleston,
Yeah.
yeah, with
Hey,
Jason
they know what they're
Patrick for
doing.
sure. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
They know what
yeah.
they're doing. And it's
She's
deeply
very self
ironic
aware that
though.
they know. Yeah. Hmm.
It's deeply ironic though that we're not supposed to objectify. And yet Tom is being seen for his surface values. It's like he may
Yeah,
be charming and all
it.
that,
Mhm.
but
Right.
he's not even acting like the Loki he was last week.
No, no, it changes in the same episode. So. All right, so more lampooning is my homework. I don't know. I'm not a lampooner, so I'm going to have to figure out how to work on that.
Well,
Have to get a
read
writer.
some
For all of
mad
you at
comic
home, I
books
might
that
have to have
covered
some
Star
lampooning
Wars.
suggestions. Go ahead. What'd you say,
Read,
Steven? I'm sorry.
pick up some of your old Mad magazines and your
Hmm.
National Lampoons and see how
Yeah,
they covered Animal House, Batman, because they did it right. They knew what they were doing, and those guys
that's
probably
true.
spent whole weekends writing those single books. You know,
It's true.
so they
It's true. Well, Loki would definitely be a pie commercial, so I'd have to figure that. I'd just start with that. So he likes pie, evidently. We're going to stop whole episodes for pie. All right, my friend. This has been fun. I feel like I could pick your brain for like hour. We could just spend hours and hours through this navigation of like because we care so much. Like you said earlier, like this was my babysitting. This was how I was raised, and I was so raised the same way. Like I was raised in the sense of, and we didn't have letters yet, Stephen. Right? So the whole ADHD thing and all that didn't exist yet. Right? It's just like figure out a way to occupy him. Do something with him. That was
yeah.
me. It's like, all right, sports, comic books, move, whatever. Do something with him. Oh my God, you're gonna drive us crazy. You know what I mean? I was the one playing cards with the adults. I was the one doing the adult puzzles. Like, I'm like elementary. Like I had pre fourth grade, like third grade, still like doing like 1,000 pieces. So they were like, something's wrong with him. Do something with him.
You know what?
And now it's like, yeah, how do I
And the
keep my
only thing
sanity?
that's changed, is the delivery device. That's the only thing
Right.
that's changed, and the vastness of content. Because your parents could just go to the corner grocery store, or while they were in the checkout line, there would be an Archie magazine, or there would be an Omni magazine, or Heavy Metal, or something like that, and the kid would just point their finger at what was going to distract them and what you could use as a babysitter. They would just point their finger at it, and as long as it didn't have sweets, you're good to go. You know. And then
Yeah,
VHS came along, and it was a trip to Blockbuster that became the babysitter.
well, my uncle had come home from Korea and he had a Betamax, and each tape had 3 to 4 movies on it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it was like thousands of movies right there in my fingertip. I mean, it was just insane. So I would do whatever it took to get, over to their house, babysit the kid, whatever it would take to get access to hundreds of movies at my fingertips. And
Right.
yeah, my brother, thank you so much for carving out time with us and talking about all this. And folks, listen, Steven Ransom may not be out generating a ton of content on his own channel, but he's a massive wealth of knowledge, experience, and thoughtfulness on all these topics. And it was great to spend time with you, my brother. I appreciate you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much, and always appreciate all the help you've given me personally, because you've always been a huge cheerleader and supporter for me personally, and I can't thank you enough as a friend.
And I wish I could do more. To be honest, I mean, I feel for you guys are my heroes, and I want to be your squire. Okay, it's like that's it. I want to sharpen your weapons. I want to hand you new weapons that I've heard about, and let's get this. Just let me iron your T-shirt for crying out loud. You know what I mean? I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy.
He's a blessing. So folks, listen, you love the stuff we talk about, just hit us up in the comments. We'd love to interact with you guys. You guys will have great things and things we can talk about. So appreciate you so much. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Be blessed. Talk hard. Until next time, I am Pops.